I could not find a WordPress theme specific to commercial real estate, and it really aggravated me. And that was a big reason why I said, okay, hey, let's build one.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
I'm great. Like I've been saying, I think for the last couple, can't get enough of 2023. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. It's a very intriguing year that's coming up, at least from my end and my little small spectrum of commercial real estate. What about you, Raphael? How's it going over there?
Yeah, same. I mean, it's pretty been lively the last, several weeks, and hopefully it continues along in 2023. And, today we had the honor of hosting our guest today, David Lewand, who is the CEO and founder of CRE Grow. And we're going to be talking a little bit about branding and building your business from, a variety of different standpoints. And I know, we can kind of touch on this a little bit later, but I know David works with a variety of different commercial real estate professionals to help them grow their brand and business. So, David, welcome.
Thanks, guys. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a big fan of your show, of your format, the people that you've had. So it's a real pleasure for me to be here today.
The honor is ours. I mean, We appreciate you coming on. I think before the show here, we were discussing how we have had a couple tech, but not someone that's so much niche. So we're excited to dive in and learn a lot, as much as we can from you, and hopefully give some value to the listeners. So
I was just going to confirm. Yeah, I'm carved pretty deeply into my niche, so I can speak on it for on and on and on and on. And compared to some of the guests that you've had, technical guests that have done a lot in a lot of areas, it's true. We have a pretty deep niche, CRE Grow, but my background is much more all over the place, but it's just within the last 10 years that I've carved into websites specific to commercial real estate.
Absolutely. So that's actually leads us to the first question, which we like to ask is really, we like to get an understanding of the person that we're talking to. So if you kind of give us a little bit about your backstory, I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I've always known that I was going to be involved in commercial real estate, or at least from high school age, because I was always mesmerized by the city of Chicago skyline. I just loved going into the city, and I was just blown away by that skyline, thinking, someday I want to be involved in there. I just always viewed it as a kind of living, breathing organism that I want to figure out a way to have a job where I'm in there and I'm actually studying or dealing or talking about commercial real estate. And at that time, it was specific to office. So I felt very fortunate out of college to get a job at what was called CB Commercial at the time, and CB Richard Ellis, now CBRE, of course, which was a great starting point. So I was a research analyst. And at that time, what a research analyst did was a little bit different than now. In the 90s, a research analyst, this is the beginning of the 90s, went from floor to floor, this is in Chicago, of every office building in downtown Chicago, recording tenants and vacancies and coming back to the office with that information and inputting it into a database that the brokers could utilize and pull information from. So I began then to develop more of an interest for building data and commercial real estate data, and how that data might be used or better used by brokers. And then I became more involved in quarterly analyses and putting together quarterly market reports, and that sort of migrated into marketing, right? I mean, showcasing research in an interesting way is really marketing, and that set me on a trajectory to be continue to be involved in commercial real estate marketing. A lot of my peers that started in research went naturally into brokerage, but I was more interested in, hey, I want to get further involved in that. And there was a lot of influences at the time with new marketing tools and techniques that dragged me that way as well. And a graduate program that I did locally at DePaul University set me on a trajectory more interested in marketing. Like, wow, there's all kinds of new marketing techniques, direct marketing that could be applied to commercial real estate.
It's awesome. Yeah. And having the research side down pat. I mean, obviously, one of the most valuable pieces of, the most value you can provide to owners and investors is data. So if you can present data in an easily readable way and in consumable ways so that people can make decisions more effectively, I mean, that's how you add significant value to, your clients, regardless of what function they have, whether they're developers, investors, even in technology. I mean, it really is, across the spectrum, having up-to-date and accurate data can be very powerful. So,
and it's interesting, the comparison in data and how you collected it back then versus now. For just speaking, even just specific to office data, back then there was a lot of pride in the collection and how you collected it, how you amassed it, and how you entered it into a database that you have a proprietary database. Say, when I was at CBRE, then Cushman & Wakefield, it's a lot of pride taken in that data collection and just lassoing it all in together, and competition among the best, who has got the best quarterly report, who's studying the downtown submarkets and reporting on it in the best way. Whereas now it's a lot of analyzing who owns the best data sets and how to, which ones do you purchase and work with in a smart way, becoming a smart user of existing data sets.
But the collection too is still pretty similar, I'm assuming, to what you had before. I mean, I know with CoStar, for example, they have a massive data set, and I get calls all the time. It's like, hey, by the way, what'd you get sell that building for? What'd you do that lease for? So the data collection methods have
CoStar
similar.
has been a big. That's definitely, you have to mention CoStar when you're talking about data collection. So some of the data collection that I did was prior to when CoStar was the biggest name in town in downtown Chicago. So an event, a terrible event that affected a lot of how data is collected, on site in the trenches versus a CoStar or that kind of thing, was 9/11. And you couldn't really enter, buildings, obviously, after 9/11 and record data in the same way that I mentioned when out of college, floor by floor, there was security. Then for good reason to get into these, to enter these buildings, to enter any kind of building, but particularly downtown office. So that was a radical shift, and CoStar then became much more necessary and was forever the only game in town. And thankfully, there is a lot of competitors, which I love to see. I've worked with CoStar and LoopNet for a variety of different reasons over the years. For a while, I was the preferred provider for LoopNet for their LoopLink product that showcased properties, which there's much more. There's many more solutions. I dare say better solutions now, third party, for integrating that into a website to showcase properties.
Earlier, you spoke of like you were looking at in high school, gazing at the Chicago skyline. Was there ever a moment that you said, well, you're looking and said, well, real estate, but was there a particular reason why you didn't head down residential by looking at the skyline, or was it just like the tall buildings and such that really drew you to the commercial real estate sector?
Yeah, I think it's the architecture of the structures that drew me into commercial. At that time, I think, in high school and my college days, I had a real deep appreciation, thinking like, am I going to go into architecture? I don't know. That's a far different deal than what I'm starting right now. When I was at this is when I was at Indiana University, and I was really pretty happy with what I was doing there. I have, though, a huge respect for residential real estate from a marketing standpoint. They were there way ahead of commercial in terms of website for companies and displaying properties. There is no commercial MLS. That's a whole other different story. But just how residential real estate was way ahead of commercial in terms of representing themselves online. So they're one is not any smarter or more gifted in any way than the other. But yeah, it's probably architecture in the end that kept me with commercial.
Well, it was a great choice, to make that decision, and look where you are now. So
the other thing that I borrowed in a sense from residential and reason why my website design, development, hosting, support, SEO company started then just focusing on design and development. I was frustrated as a marketing director. At this time I was the marketing when I was at NAI Hiffman, a local NAI affiliate, frustrated that I could not find a WordPress theme specific to commercial real estate, and it really aggravated me. And that was a big reason why I said, okay, hey, let's build one, and let's have it geared toward commercial real estate, and we could improve upon it and go a lot of different directions. But there are all kinds of themes for residential, right? There was just a bucket load to choose from. So I saw it as an opportunity and as a way to end my frustration.
Definitely. Yeah, no, and that kind of is kind of segues perfectly into what I was going to ask you, is that deciding factor regarding why you decided to pursue CRE Grow as an opportunity, because you'd mentioned the previous career that you had regarding data collection, and then you got into marketing and everything else, and you kind of touched on a little bit about what the impetus was. But if you could kind of elaborate a little bit on that, and then maybe talk a little bit about some of the early struggles you faced with the new enterprise. As we know, it's not all roses when it comes to that sort of thing. So I think it'd be nice to kind of hear some context.
No, all kinds of struggles that I've learned from. And as my career went forward in commercial real estate, just knowing that you want to be in marketing for commercial real estate is not enough to. I was driven, I think, by new technologies and saying, well, how the heck can I use that? And early on was direct marketing, email marketing for property specific. Now that just seems old hat, annoying and crazy. But at the time when I was first interested in it, this is maybe right around the year 2000. And not a lot of it was happening. So I saw an opportunity way back then to, if you can be really good at hitting the right people who really want, say, a specific property and not just blast off to everyone, then you can really help an organization. So I was able to do that at a few different places as their marketing director. And then when I went on my own, was able to do that for a number of different, especially small to mid-sized companies, handle their direct marketing, handle their creation of their flyers. I mean, I've done an embarrassing amount of flyers over the years, thousands, and then an embarrassing amount of emails. But that now has evolved. What sort of tools are used for property-specific marketing, and I think a lot of them are pretty good. I've also been interested in a lot of technologies. Like another example is 3D modeling. I thought at the time Google and their SketchUp product was amazing and something that was really going to alter the way that property was marketed on commercial real estate at all different levels. So I did try to start a company. It was called 3D CRE. That was pretty much ahead of its time, maybe too far ahead, because the only client we ended up having was iFly skydiving. Do you remember, or do you know them?
No,
and it was a time when they were growing. So we would put together their prototype, their 3D model, all over the world. I mean, they were really expanding at the time. So I was thankful to be able to introduce 3D modeling, at least for 3D CRE. Another technology that I thought would take off was drone. I as a marketing director, I flew up hundreds of drones per year around properties and developed a network of drone operators. And I thought, hey, maybe I should leverage that network and start my own company. And then I saw, wait a second, there's all kinds of people who have developed much better efficiencies in drone base, and it doesn't make sense to get in there because it's a lot of paperwork. I mean, there's a lot of licensing and stuff like that. So, but I mentioned this 3D stuff and this drone stuff. Simultaneously, I was doing websites. I mean, I was doing websites when I was marketing director and early on, pretty much as soon as websites were a thing, right? Yeah. I started my career, when I started, there was really no such thing as websites, but ever since there were, I was interested in them. But so I've learned a little bit from the 3D stuff and the drone stuff, but always been a website guy. And you learn from your mistakes, but you hold on to the things that remain successful. And everyone always wants a website.
Yeah, I get calls all the time about websites and stuff, and I know that everyone needs one nowadays. If you don't have one, I mean, I don't know anyone who doesn't have one. That's what I should be saying. But it's very interesting that you mentioned that, how you bounced around in different techs and your ideas led you down the path, but then you came full circle back around to your website. So
yeah, and people like Jeff was saying, I mean, nowadays it's so much more prevalent to have people actively searching on digitally to search for information. Obviously this is not new. I mean, this has been around for decades, but especially the decision makers of the future, these individuals are actively online all the time. And so having a presence, whether that's a website, and I'm a big proponent for actively being on different social platforms, and also leveraging the Google platform, Google My Business, and all these other digital aspects that are available to you. I mean, it can be super powerful to be able to generate opportunities for your business, regardless of whether you're a broker, construction professional, technology company, really anything. So
yeah, I agree. Obviously, it's always going to be the hub. Social media, as you say, should be a satellite, something that you're continuously communicating your social media to your website, and leveraging social media in both platforms. And but social media changes, right? I mean, there is nothing there's nothing to say that some of these most popular social media platforms may not even exist in a couple of years. And I've witnessed that quite a bit. I've seen a lot of great platforms that were promising for commercial real estate. I thought Pinterest at the time was an amazing interface and would work great for commercial real estate. I thought Google Plus for a time, remember that, would be great. So a lot of people think that same thing, and it's a little bit dangerous to throw all of your strategy into one platform. So there's plenty of individuals and teams and companies who do an amazing job of applying their unique content to all different channels, including their website. But there's quite a few that are in the wrong place or don't have any kind of hub to work from. And I see that probably more often with the small to mid-sized companies, who we are more set up to help with immediately. And in doing so, in creating a new website for them, it also is an opportune time for them to rebrand, to get a hold of, okay, what is our portfolio? What are our available listings here? Let's finally organize them. Let's finally implement the right tools and integrate the right tools for property display, and telling our story, or getting our case studies all together, so that when we want to tell the social media channels of the world our story for property specific or these case studies, they can land into them, and they're landing into our website which funnels them into a lot of different places. And then we start to, control that conversation, and we start to see, who exactly is visiting our website and where, and how can we then continue to improve upon it to answer the needs of our clients or our potential clients. So that's what I love to show after a site is launched. I love to show my clients, see, this is where you're really being helped. Remember where you were lacking in this area, and to have measurable results like that, especially in the commercial real estate world, they want that proof that it's working. And thankfully, modern websites, you can apply that proof.
Absolutely. That kind of leads me to the next question. I'm kind of curious of, like, on the process of when a new client comes along, do you do like an analyzation of their website that they already have and tell them kind of like, hey, I noticed all these are lacking. How does that, can you just explain that process when you kind of bring them on and what you do for them? And I guess, so to speak, a sales pitch, that'd be great just to see,
Yeah. First off, there's a lot of different points of contact, right? I mean, depending on the size of the company or just how they're structured, where a potential point of contact might be a marketing coordinator, director of marketing, or the principal or owner of the whole company, depending on how they're structured or the size of the company. So the conversations, obviously, that I have with any of those parties are going to be different, but usually their interest is in they usually, when they approach me, say, I'm not really liking my current website. Obviously, we need to change. I've got all kinds of people are telling me that that we need to improve, including internally, but maybe some clients. So if I am not approaching them, which is probably more often the case, and they're first approaching me, it's usually with that subtle complaint that, we think things can be better.
For sure. So as far as the process is concerned, when you start to work with them, what does that look like? Is it one of those things where, you guys identify that there's a, quote unquote problem, and that they either think the design is lacking, or maybe their messaging isn't quite right for what their target audience is? Any other type of funnels that or functionality within the website that could potentially improve performance? What are some of the things that you go over through that process to kind of get them to where they need to be?
Well, the flow that I like to have is a conversation that leads to like a brief or complex proposal, and we go on from there. But also, in an initial conversation or a second conversation, I have an advantage now that I didn't have 10 years ago when I was first starting. I had no library, no archive of work that I could refer to. I could say, just trust me, please, it could be great. But now I have case studies and live sites to say, based upon your company that you have at any given time, these 10 availabilities, you have a staff of 10 team members. It's not that far unlike this client that I've done work for. Now, I want to have a variety in my portfolio for all kinds of reasons, and none of my clients want to be exactly like another client. But when they see the functionality that they're interested in working already on a live site, it's that really is a difference maker, where they don't have to cross their fingers with some of our competition who may just be getting into the commercial real estate website game, or may not focus on commercial real estate. So they don't have the opportunity to dip in to an archive of not just full live sites to show, but components and tools and functionality to pull from. And so I'm thankful for having been doing this for a while, I guess, because I've now, I guess, earned that archive of components.
Well, that's great.
Are proven successful, right?
Absolutely. And, as you said, I mean, you learn the best practices over time. And I'm sure, from what your knowledge base was in 2010 when you started to today, it's just night and day. I mean, and the fact that you've been able to go through, even different periods of ebbs and flows in the economy. That also makes a difference. I'm sure you'll see and track performance over time. So as far as the best practices for, different websites, obviously the people who listen to our podcast range in a variety of different professions. Obviously, commercial real estate agents, I'd say, is a big portion of them, but we also have construction professionals. We have,
Sure.
Technology companies that focus on the commercial real estate industry. So as far as, some of those best practices that you've seen, and they don't have to be like super granular or anything like that, maybe a little high level as far as some of the things that you've seen. Could you share maybe one or two that you think that you see on a lot of sites that, you haven't worked with, that you're like, man, if they just did this or this small tweak, like it could, improve their performance in whatever category you feel is most appropriate?
Yeah, just within the last, say 2 to 5 years, there's actually tools that exist that can quantify errors or performance on a website. And that is also another big advantage to being able to approach all of these different commercial real estate entities that you mentioned and measure their current site, say, here's how you're performing. And it's a fair tool, I think. The one that I'm thinking of right now is Google Lighthouse. So it separates categories like performance, like best practices, like SEO, and divides performance on desktop versus mobile. And that often helps referring someone who's not quite so sure where to start, or if there's anything really even wrong with their website, having some kind of a measurable proof that, hey, maybe it's great, or unfortunately it's not so great, and these are the main weaknesses. And I see probably some of the main weaknesses that I can tell pretty quickly, but also a tool like Google Lighthouse can tell, is heavyweight homepage, big images, download speeds that take forever and ever, that end up affecting the whole user experience. And in addition, Google and SEO performance. So that's a big thing. I think the performance of that and of the if it's a slow website because of a big image or any other reason. But also it's a problem that Google can't necessarily measure if right from the onset your website does not look professional. So I think commercial real estate players have a better and better idea each year. This looks professional, yeah, or no, this goes in the box of this doesn't really look professional. So we try to get our people from one box, to the other. So there's sort of a gut test that works just as well or equally as well as Google. We have always paid big attention to, internally, to making sure that our websites are perform well. This is before there was any sort of measurable way to determine that. And now it's wonderful that we can more quickly define how well they perform SEO wise. And we've been able to compare our websites to our direct competitors, and we stack up really well. I mean, we really do outperform. So the self-governing that we've done before and the numbers we've kept in-house, decided to expose that a little more. And I did that at last year's ICSC Las Vegas, and say, here's a study that we've done of our whole family of websites that we've done over the years and how they are according to Google Lighthouse. And here's our competitors who are advertising their portfolio of and boasting websites that they think are great. Let's measure those on Google Lighthouse, and they're not as good. I don't identify competitors individually by name, right? But I want them to know that or find for themselves or measure their own against ones that we've done. So I would invite you to go to our website and look at our case studies. And there's actually an article about that exact study that we did before we went to ICSC. But that study, in part, not solely, but in part, is what earned us the relationship that we now have with CCIM, I think, in a big way, and the relationship that we now have with Corfac International as well.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And out of curiosity, you had mentioned some of the the data that you guys compile via, Google Lighthouse and, tracking those particular performance metrics. Do you guys also, track, have surveys or anything that you send out to your clients? You utilize, categorize data based on, different questions that, you ask them before they have their website versus after or anything like that? I'm just kind of more of curiosity than anything.
Yeah, like a post-launch analysis, pre versus post there. It's not certainly something that we publish externally.
Oh, that makes sense.
Look
No,
how
I
terrible
understand.
these guys were. Look at this before and after. It would be interesting if we could do that.
Yeah.
But especially in the area of branding, when we're involved with the rebranding, a whole new font and color scheme and maybe logo, and where that was confusing or all over the place on an existing site, those make for great before and afters that retain and yeah, we revisit, not in a necessarily a formal way with the but I think more often than not what they're doing that internally. I mean, they all know where their website was at prior to relaunch, prior to revisiting it. So I think they're celebrating as much as we are the gains that they're seeing from simply from rebranding, but more often even or just as often from a better property display where people can get to an individual property that they want to see, their site users, in 2 clicks, instead of 5 clicks.
So I kind of want to talk about get your take on where you see the future of websites and digital design going in CRE. It can be 5-10 years out or even further. Just I would love to get your take on that and see your thoughts. So
yeah, I mean, we are always aware of the fact that that you can't figure out the future very easily. And you don't want to. What I think is it should be top of mind when you're thinking about the future is not to latch on to fads, design fads. There's a lot of design fads that I'm going to give you a couple of examples here of some commercial real estate or website in general design fads. I think one of them is full width. So having a menu that occupies the full width of the screen, we're able to determine that doesn't really work well, at least, or especially in commercial real estate. I think it's better to have a fixed width site. There are a lot of full width images, for example, like a full width homepage image, big, bold videography, motion, but the interface, the menu and everything, you're going to best serve your site user if you keep that in the lane. Otherwise, you have a giant monitor like I have here right now, and then you've got a menu, up here is that menu.
yeah.
And then you have their logo up in another area, and they're all over the place, and that's just aggravating. So that's one. And another one I think is big giant font. I think big giant font all over the place on your website was interesting and a new idea 3, 4, 5 years ago, and then now it's like, okay, that maybe enough of the big font. It served its time. Just like if you look back 10 years ago, there was this big trend of having these stock images of guys with construction plans with a yellow hat on. Everyone had the same stock images. So there's a danger in not latching on to fads because you can't predict the future. But we also deliver websites that are highly customizable, every component of it, including a header, a video, where you can say 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road, swap out that video and have a completely different look to your website, or showcase completely different properties if that header was property specific. So our clients really appreciate having the ability to edit all different parts of their website, obviously, bios, properties, etc. But I think maybe that's the biggest thing that they want to edit is that video, header, or maybe they start out with a static header and make it into a video when they've accumulated all the content that they like. It does help that we've got a continued relationship with all of our clients where we can guide them or maybe help them with a new video. But we really mostly have a hands-off relationship, just hosting and support. It's important to know that after, upon launching a new site or relaunching it, we give them a tutorial and leave them in a place where they can edit all of them themselves. So these things that I'm talking about adding in future years, they should be able to do themselves.
Yeah, no, for sure. And out of curiosity, and this is kind of unrelated to the particular question, but you guys work with WordPress primarily, is that correct? Or is that?
Yeah, absolutely. WordPress is always been my weapon of choice. WordPress is another great product with an outstanding community that surrounds it. The best community that I can think of people working together is WordPress. There's and I referenced Google SketchUp at the time. That was a great community. So I am a big fan of communities of developers or whoever that support products. But WordPress absolutely has always been and will continue to be 10 years from now of outstanding choice. So it's important to. And I'm thankful that the most popular choice is probably the most powerful or the most flexible. There is a number of different tools that we apply and plugins for WordPress that you don't know. There are some common to every website, but every website has a different formula, different ingredients to that website cake that over the years we've grown to know the ingredients that work or don't cooperate well together, plugins that don't. Another advantage I think that we have over say the less experienced designers, developers is as we're supporting a website going forward, we're not putting ingredients together, plugins that don't work well together and cause your site to dismantle itself. You can't just it's funny. I see a lot of things that say, well, all you have to do then in WordPress is just throw on auto update. No, I don't think so, because if you just threw on auto update, it's just sort of a time bomb for when that website is going to self-destruct. At least for the complexity and the type of plugins that we apply, some custom, some not. It deserves a weekly updates, weekly support of a lot of things. Absolutely support of making sure that there's no brute force attacks, and so and security. It's unbelievable how many people are trying to break into websites, but it just blows my mind. But they're not getting in, thankfully, to ours. So so we're doing a good job in that regard with security, and therefore our hosting is excellent because no sites are going down because of bad security.
Right. Well, that's great insight. Yeah. We thank you for sharing that. So one of the things we like to ask near the end of the podcast interview, and first off, thank you so much for stopping by and engaging with the audience. I know we gained a lot of value, and I know saw Jeff taking some notes, and I know I took some internal notes as well, which I'm looking forward to kind of applying to what we do on the digital front. But what we like to typically do near the end of the podcast is we like to ask our guests to talk a little bit about one of the most impactful books they ever read. It doesn't have to be real estate related, doesn't have to be business related. Just something that you read that kind of changed the trajectory of your life. Yeah,
I think one that set me off on a new trajectory and helped define where I was going was Permission Marketing from Seth Godin. I'm not sure if you're familiar. He's put together. He used to be head of marketing at Yahoo when Yahoo was the big powerhouse, right? And when he put out the book Permission Marketing at a time when that was, I think direct marketing was just in its infancy, it was sort of a Bible. And that I did graduate studies at DePaul University here locally, Chicago area, and that is what we referred to, was that the new Seth Godin book. But I learned a lot of tools and tactics that I could apply to commercial real estate. The marketing, permission marketing is the idea that you're building a relationship, friendship, and you're not disrupting people. That would be the polar opposite of permission marketing. And he's obviously right on. Permission marketing has just grown and grown and grown and grown. And keep in mind, this was before social media. So permission marketing and just the idea of having an agreed exchange, I think, is huge. You don't want to just bombard people and for no good reason. You want to give them content that affects them in a positive way. So that is really what permission marketing is all about.
That's awesome.
That's great.
We'll have to add that to the list. I know. Well, that's one of the cool things about why we ask these questions is because we get to hear, our guests contribute something as far as their what the most impactful book they read, and then obviously we apply it within our own life. And
I mean, you could go a lot of different directions. Now I don't read a lot of books now, but at that time, right? I mean, this was written in, I think, 99. And then my classes were in 2000. So at that time, it was impactful. It's just like a lot of things, right? Music, different music impacts you in a different way, different times in your life. There's a lot of different books, but honestly, I don't do a lot of reading more recently. I did more reading maybe earlier in my career. The love of architecture. There's a lot of great architecture related stuff like the Fountainhead. At the time, I thought that was awesome. There's a Chicago architecture book, which I loved because it was so focused. The Devil in the White City.
Mm-hmm. That's a great book.
That's really interesting, and I hear that they're going to maybe make that into a.
They're trying to, yeah. I think DiCaprio bought the rights, and I think they were going to do a movie, and now I think they're going to consider doing a series, like a long series on it, or a limited series or something like that. But I don't know. I haven't seen the.
Either way, I'm interested to see. I think Keanu Reeves might be involved in it. Mm-hmm. But it really is hard for a lot of these books to make them as good in movies. Obviously, like the Fountainhead. It was Gary Cooper played Howard Rourke, but it doesn't translate. You've got 700 plus pages and a lot of stuff going on.
So earlier you was talking about contributions. So one of the things that we like to ask our guests is we have a CRE treasure chest, which is a repository of things that people have contributed, such as ebooks, case studies. Anything they think would give value to our listeners. And so our ask today is, what are you willing to contribute?
Yeah. And I we were talking about it. I love the whole concept that you guys have of having this treasure chest. It does sort of lend itself towards this, permission marketing and exchange and providing value. And yeah, absolutely. I creating a landing page that has some different things, like a special offer for fans of the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, and then some favorite tools that I use, business related, and some freebie type tools and recommendations for paid different paid tools, and even some personal apps and stuff that I think are great or have been great for me. But hopefully your fans get some value out of that.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah, no, I know I'm going to use probably several of them. I'll dig in to see what exactly, you're recommending. And, I'm sure there's ways we can incorporate that into what we do on the podcast too.
Yeah. Like for a personal one, for example, I run, or at least try to, and there are some great tools for runners or people that are trying to get in better shape. Some tools are better than others, so I offer some recommendations there.
That's awesome. Well, we're looking forward to seeing it. So if you guys are listening to this podcast, it's going to be in, his corresponding CRE Treasure Chest entry. So feel free to check that out. So again, Dave, thank you so much for stopping by. We obviously greatly appreciate your contributions, and thank you again for sharing your insights today. As far as if people wanted to get in touch with you regarding, what you do on a day-to-day, how can they do that?
Yeah, and thank you for having me. This is a great opportunity for me, and I really appreciate it. And as far as how can you get a hold of me, I think the best way to get a hold of us is CREgrow.com. Check out what we offer, our services, our case studies. Otherwise, you can look me up on LinkedIn, Dave Lewand. And I'm pretty active probably on LinkedIn more than any other social media, but we tell our story fairly well, I hope, on CREgrow.com.
That's amazing. So what we'll go ahead and do then is we'll include the CRE Grow website and his LinkedIn in the description as well. So if you guys will listen to this in a podcast format, go ahead in the description. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, same thing. Check out the description. You'll be able to access Dave's contact information. So again, Dave, thanks so much for your time. We greatly appreciate what you do on a day-to-day. As far as those of you guys who are listening in a podcast format, we would greatly appreciate if you could leave a 5-star review. It does make an impact in our ability to reach a broader audience. And we've seen significant growth over the last year, and that's all because of the contributions you guys have made. So we greatly appreciate that. Along with that, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. It makes a huge impact in our ability to reach a broader audience, and we would greatly appreciate the support. So thanks again so much for tuning in, and we'll see you all next time.